Okay, gang, time to talk about some industry bullshit concerning Middle-earth Shadow of War. Yes, NeoGaf, I'm talking about Middle-earth Shadow of War again. They don't like that I do so many videos. They tally them up. But hey, it's one of the biggest games coming out in 2017. It's also got some of the biggest bullshit of 2017 around it. So I'm going to talk about it a lot. So today we're going to talk about this interview that Eurogamer did with the creative designer for Shadow of War, Bob Roberts. Now, before we carry on, I just want to say, nothing personal against Bob Roberts. I never take this stuff personal against the developers themselves. Unless they take down my videos and try to sue me for $15 million, of course. When they speak on behalf of publisher decisions like this, I just see them as like the mouth of Sauron, something like that. Quite fitting for what we're talking about. So yeah, we chip away at the bullshit, let's not chip away at the people. I don't want to be one of those toxic YouTubers, you know? Okie dokie, pig in a pokey. So we are going to go through this interview and just crack down on the bullshit in real time. How's that for exciting? How's that for something to do for a morning? So, Shadow of War developer discusses the game's controversial loot boxes. That's the name of the article. The subheader there, it's frankly complicated. They say that a lot. Game developers will do this when they're talking about various unpopular business practices. They always tell you it's complicated. It's complicated. But because of the cloak and dagger nature of game development, they never actually tell you what the complications are. They just say it's complicated and then assume that you're too stupid to give them a follow-up question. And to be fair, much of the game's media doesn't give the follow-up question. So we'll scroll down here and I'll just read stuff out. So first question, what can you say to reassure the fans who will never buy a loot box that Shadow of War has been balanced with them in mind? Bob Roberts says, "We're working our tails off to make this massive game, and as a designer, the design director, I focus on balancing it. We do a ton of play testing, I'm sure they do, and make sure it is tuned to a setting where people can enjoy it. We kept all of the loot boxes and the economy of real-world money turned off in play testing, so we know we are balancing around an experience which is rewarding without any of that stuff." The interesting thing to note there is that they have not had the loot boxes and the economy turned on in playtesting. So they know that they've got what they consider a balanced experience with it off. What's it like with it on? This is doubly interesting because this runs with something we learned when we talked about the microtransactions that are in Deus Ex, Mankind Divided, where those microtransactions were mandated by Square Enix in Europe about a week or two before the game was due to come out. They had absolutely no clue the microtransactions were going to be there and just had to shovel them in after the fact, in ways that if they were bought, they'd absolutely break the game. A lot of the times these microtransactions are an afterthought, which sounds great on paper. It sounds good. It's like, oh hooray, they're making the game first, thinking about the microtransactions next, which is cool, except the publishers obviously have their eye on microtransactions from the effing beginning, and developers are making the games with no clue as to how they'll affect the game. So I don't really feel reassured by that. I don't feel reassured that the loot boxes and the economy and that was taken out when they were testing it. I want to know what impact it has on the game. So yeah, not reassured by that at all. Next question, because some people think you guys have ulterior motives, you're waiting for a tough bit to pop up with an on-screen prompt saying, hey, have you seen what we're selling? The question there. There are no real like hardball questions here, but there are no softball interview questions here. This is just, these are ball questions. That sounded insulting, but I'm just saying they're standard ball questions. But anyway, they're basically saying, are they going to ambush us with commercials for the microtransactions? To which Bob says, no, absolutely not, 100% not. It's important to clarify this, as there were a couple of misconceptions. First, the concern about balancing. Hopefully when it is out there, people are able to talk about their experience. Then the balancing question will be answered, hopefully by people you trust to play through and see that. I absolutely will be playing through and seeing that. Of course, whether you trust me or not is up to you. For the other big misconception, Bob says, that was whether the game had to be online. It's important for people to understand that no, it's not required to be online to play the game. It's a massive game where you can enjoy the full experience without putting any extra money in. Well, he didn't really answer the question there. He talked about balancing. He talked about whether or not the game had to be online or not. I wasn't really concerned about it being always online. That wasn't a fear until now. Now that it's been mentioned, now I'm wondering. But again, I'm not really reassured here. I'm not settling, I'm not complacent on this one, because yeah, they might not have a big screen that pops up and says, hey, we're selling this thing, but then a lot of microtransactions have gotten a lot more insidious than that, a lot more subtle than that, a lot more, hey, we're not saying buy the thing, but there's things over there. It's you know, they do this in Destiny. Destiny isn't like shoving pop-up ads saying, buy bright engrams. No, you get a bright engram when you level up, and you just so happen to take it to the store where they're selling silver in-game with real-world money. Same with Overwatch, really. You get those loot boxes every time you level up, but every time you level up, that's really a commercial for loot boxes, because you normally get some shite in there, and you think, God, I wish I had something that wasn't shit in here. Oh, wait a minute, we can buy more loot boxes. Great, I'll buy those and not get shit. Except they will get shit, and then they'll just keep buying them. Then they're caught in a shit loop. So scrolling down, we got Eurogamer begging the question, why put it in at all? Best fucking question I've heard. As a design director, your life is spent ensuring players don't get bottlenecked in certain places, that people never run out of resources when they need them. Why complicate that? Why indeed? Video games had balance pretty much down for the most part, and microtransactions came along and threw a fucking spanner in the works. Bob says, yeah, in the game you earn resources at a regular pace and the system's attuned so you don't need another option. Alright then, so why have you put microtransactions in? There's the question. At the same time, oh, here we go, it's that one again. It's there as a player choice. Fuck's sake, no. We're not, no. You don't choose to have microtransactions in games. When you buy a game at retail, you have not made the choice that there are certain things in there that are going to be tempting you to buy them to save time, to avoid tedious parts. Nobody chooses the tricks like again with Destiny. Oh, no. It's just there for choice. You don't have to use them. No, but you do have to take your bright engrams to Eververse and have it wafted onto your nose every time like a freshly cooked sausage. Player choice is an old one, but there is actually some new interesting stuff that's coming up here. But anyway, continuing on with what Bob said, it's there from my perspective for people who are protective of their spare time and scared when a massive game comes along that they're not getting to see the full experience. Right, I have very little spare time, okay? I don't have much time at all these days. I got through Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor okay. I'm probably going to get through Shadow of War okay. When I buy a game, I'd be more terrified of the idea that I'm skipping vast quantities of it by spending money to do so. Spending money to not play the game seems the opposite to me of seeing your massive game. And more importantly, that's not the message I've ever gotten from a game that's done this. You might think that's the message you're putting out there, that, oh, people who are scared of how big and great your game is won't see how big and great it is. From your perspective, that might be how you view microtransactions as a designer. It ain't how I fucking view it as an audience member. As I've said before, I see a game saying, there's a lot of this game that's just not worth playing. In fact, it's so not worth playing, we put a price tag on not playing it. It's a devaluing of gameplay itself. That's what microtransactions are. It's not a value of my time, it's a devaluing of yours. And here comes the real kicker. It's the same design philosophy, he says, as us adding in difficulty modes. So we now have easy mode, and we've added hard mode at the other end of the spectrum. Okay, so if you've added easy mode so that people who value their time can get through it, let's go back to that first question. Why'd you put the microtransactions in there, son? You've got your easy mode. If microtransactions are your easy mode, why have you got two easy modes? It's like, I'm the last person to complain about the filthy casuals taking over video games, but two easy modes? Easy mode and paid for easy mode? That's doubling down on your easy. This is the most casual game I've ever heard of. It's putting more control in people's hands, he says. You know how to play best. You make that choice. Oh, thank you. Thank you for giving me the choice to spend money in your game. Except again, with someone with an addictive personality. And for people who might even have worse than that, you know, proper, like, gamblerholics and whatnot, they don't really get a choice to ignore this shit, do they? Huh? There's no option to play it your way that way. You can't play it in a way that'll avoid this shit. If I can play Shadow of War and never see the orc merchant rubbing his hands, I'll be fucking surprised. And that, if I play it and never see a hint of these loot boxes, never see a trace of that marketplace, I will believe what you've said about control being put in my hands. But if I see it, if I see any of that shit, then you're talking shite. Interview continues. Interview just says, "You're not saying switch to easy and pay for loot boxes." Bob laughs and says, "Right," probably laughs because he realises he's gotten away with it now, which he has, because that's that. There's no follow-up on that. There's no, you know, talk about that lack of choice that's actually there. There's no questioning why there are two easy modes. It's just, oh, you're saying don't switch it to easy, you're saying don't buy loot boxes, to which the creative director laughs and says, "Right," which I could read as sarcastically, because, well, that's how I would, if I was in that position, if I were the one selling the loot boxes and someone said, "Oh, you're saying don't buy them," I'd probably go, "Yeah, right, that's exactly what I'm saying, mate." So Eurogamer's done with that. They ask Bob if Bob will buy loot boxes. Bob says that he'll just let the system feed him rewards as they've balanced them. Which, again, I mean, it's a good line for the interview, because it says, oh, the game is just so rewarding enough on its own. And that may or may not be true. Again, we you know, I fully cop to it. We have to play it. But the industry really is stuck in this limbo, this holding pattern, where they need to sell these loot boxes, but they're all too ashamed to sell them. So you ask the director whether they're going to use a feature of their game, and the good PR answer is no. Like, you realise that's a fucked up feature in video games when the developers themselves can't bring themselves, for the sake of selling them, for the sake of making them look worth the money, they can't bring themselves to say they'll buy them themselves. They can't bring themselves to say they'll use them. What does that say about loot boxes? Come the fuck on. I would rather it if they just said, oh yeah, they're great, I'm gonna be buying loads. At least then they're buying into their own BS. Eurogamer asks, speaking generally, do you think it's fair for full-price AAA games to feature loot boxes like that? I don't think it is, but anyway, that's the question that's asked. Bob Roberts says, you put your $60 in for a game like ours up front, and our focus is that its initial purchase price is more than worth it. Well, of course they'd say that. You want people to be pleasantly surprised by how much stuff is in it. Okay, that was the... Do you think it's fair? I mean, I guess the answer is yes, because there's so much of the game, but again, I'm someone who remembers times before all this. Before these microtransactions happened, and the games were considered just as worth it then. Typically had a lot more game to them, because remember, a lot of these microtransactions, these cosmetic ones and all of this shit, this was shit that was in games as standard once upon a time. Then they took them out, sold them back to us as DLC. Then they took them out of DLC and sold them back to us in pieces as part of their glorified gambling. I'm old enough to remember the way this history has gone. Let's not fucking, like repaint it. Eurogamer follows up by saying that they understand the argument that their existence in games is a distraction, to which Bob replies, yeah, it's such a charged topic, it's frankly complicated. Get rid of complicated. You see the debate play out online and forum threads where people argue about it. There's so much complexity to it. Just keep saying it. Especially when you see articles coming out about our game or another game, and we have announced a load of new content, and we're trying to find out, oh, and Susan, can we get the tiny violin? Thank you. Okay, where are we? We have announced a load of new content, and we're trying to find out what people think about those things, but the conversation keeps coming back to that. It's interesting to see the discussion, but we want to get people's opinions on more than just that. Well, tough shit. Most of us want games without microtransactions shoveled in as an afterthought to the games that they've just paid a premium price for. But we don't all get what we want. Good. Good that loot boxes are still... I mean, that's the thing. People were already getting tired of talking about microtransactions. The game industry had gotten away with it, at least for most of the media. Most of the media gave up. I saw game journalists on Twitter all the time. Oh, I'm so sick of hearing about microtransactions. Can't we just enjoy video games? They always go back to that one. Can't we all just enjoy video games and not complain about every little thing that happens in them? You'd gotten away with it, publishers, but you couldn't. You had to take it further like you always fucking do. So, goodbye regular microtransactions, hello fucking loot boxes, hello gambling, and hello Warner Brothers pulling it off worse than anyone. Putting things like fucking orcs in their fucking loot boxes. Yeah, people are gonna keep talking about it. Good. Warner Brothers pushed the fucking envelope yet again. Took the piss hard yet again. Boo-hoo that you want to talk about the game some more, but people keep wanting to talk about the loot boxes, the thing that they're gonna feel affects the game the most. Maybe if you wanted us to talk about how cool your game was, you wouldn't tout a feature that undermines the entire fucking game. How about that? I mean, I'm just following a logical thread here. Bob Robert just ends with, obviously we have, I don't see how it's obvious, but obviously we have tuned our game so it works without those things, and then including them does not distract from the rest of it. Well, again, like I said, if I can play it, and again with my addictive personality and my, you know, my worry constantly, the war I go to with these fucking games to not buy into this shit to save time or to get a nice funny hat, right? If I can play it and not feel distracted by it, Bob, I'll buy you 2 beers. I'll go to wherever you are and buy you a beer, matey boy. But if I feel like those microtransactions, like your fucking loot boxes, like your fucking orc merchant, has impugned my fucking experience in some way, has shoveled its oar in, then you'll think that I've been going light on microtransactions this whole fucking time.